66 million years ago, a single asteroid strike severed the trajectory of life on Earth, bringing the age of dinosaurs to an abrupt end. But history often turns on the thinnest of margins. Had that celestial body missed our planet by a mere few degrees, the reign of the dinosaurs would have continued, and perhaps evolved into something extraordinary. Could some species have developed complex tool-use culture, or even their own Stone Age? To explore this alternate timeline, we must first shatter the persistent myth that all dinosaurs were unintelligent brutes. By analyzing their true cognitive potential, we uncover evidence that the seeds of a profound biological revolution were already taking root long before the sky fell. While 10 million years may seem vast, it is a brief blink on the geological timescale, yet more than enough to trigger radical evolutionary shifts. This transformation occurred in less time than the hypothetical 10 million year window we are proposing for the dinosaurs. Evolution is not always a slow crawl. Under the right environmental pressures, beneficial traits can accelerate rapidly. Had the Chicxulub asteroid not struck, the late Cretaceous ecosystems would have remained in flux. With shifting sea levels, drifting continents, and emerging habitats, the advantage would have shifted away from sheer physical size toward behavioral flexibility. In such a dynamic world, intelligence becomes the ultimate survival tool. Enhanced memory, coordinated hunting, and the ability to transmit learned experiences across generations provide a decisive edge in navigating environmental change. If troodontids had been granted another 10 million years, they would not necessarily have become human, but they could have evolved behaviors far surpassing any prehistoric creature. Once a species begins to accumulate and share knowledge, it crosses the threshold of instinct and enters the dawn of its own Stone Age. Of course, not every dinosaur would have followed this path. If intelligence was destined to become a greater evolutionary advantage, the next question is obvious. Which dinosaur was already closest to taking that first step? When people think of dinosaurs, most imagine massive creatures with tiny brains and simple behaviors. This perception is not entirely wrong, but it only reflects a small part of the story. In reality, the world of dinosaurs was incredibly diverse, and the levels of intelligence among species varied just as much as they do in modern animals today. Giant herbivores like Stegosaurus or Brachiosaurus were not particularly notable for their cognition. A Stegosaurus weighed about 11,000 pounds, yet its brain was only about the size of a walnut. The colossal sauropods, measuring over 82 feet in length, possessed brains only the size of a tennis ball. For these species, the most effective survival strategy was not being smarter, but being larger. Their massive body size helped them ward off most predators without the need for complex behaviors. However, the picture changes when we look at the Theropoda group, the predatory dinosaurs including Velociraptor, Deinonychus, Troodon, Tyrannosaurus rex, and eventually modern birds. Unlike the giant herbivores, theropods had to constantly process information from their environment. They needed to identify targets, anticipate the movements of their prey, choose the optimal moment to strike, and adapt to changes within the ecosystem. Studies of fossilized skulls show that many theropods had significantly higher brain-to-body ratios than other dinosaur groups. In particular, small coelurosaur lineages had more developed brains than previously thought. Some recent studies even estimate that Tyrannosaurus rex may have possessed over 3 billion neurons in its forebrain, comparable to many modern primates, though this conclusion remains a subject of scientific debate. The point is not whether dinosaurs were as intelligent as humans. What matters is that by the time the Chicxulub asteroid struck, some dinosaur lineages appeared to be evolving toward increased cognitive capacity. Had that process not been interrupted, the history of Earth might have unfolded in a completely different direction. Yet troodontids did not evolve in isolation. To understand why they were so unusual, we first need to see where they stood among the rest of the dinosaur world. If one were to identify a dinosaur with the potential to evolve toward higher intelligence, most paleontologists would look past the Tyrannosaurus rex and focus on a much smaller, sharper predator, the Troodontidae. Appearing in the late Jurassic and persisting through the end of the Cretaceous, these predators stood roughly 3 to 6.5 feet tall and weighed between 90 and 110 pounds. While their size was modest, their biological hardware was extraordinary. Relative to their body mass, troodontids possessed the largest brain of any known non-avian dinosaur. Their encephalization quotient surpassed that of most other theropods, approaching the cognitive profiles of modern birds of prey, a strong indicator of advanced problem-solving and learning capabilities. Troodontids exhibited a suite of traits essential for cognitive complexity. Their large, forward-facing eyes provided binocular vision, allowing for precise depth perception during hunts, while their inner ear structure indicates highly refined balance and sensory processing. Most significant, however, were their forelimbs. With fingers longer and more flexible than those of their contemporaries, troodontids were capable of physical interactions with their environment that went beyond simple predation. This dexterity is a crucial evolutionary precursor to tool manipulation. Furthermore, fossilized nesting sites reveal complex reproductive behaviors, such as orderly egg arrangement and likely brooding. This investment in offspring suggests that troodontid young may have learned from their parents a vital transition from instinct-based survival to the transmission of knowledge. Troodontids were not the geniuses of the Cretaceous, but they occupied the vanguard of cognitive evolution. They stood closer to the threshold of a major leap in intelligence than any other dinosaur group. Of course, not every dinosaur would have followed this path. If intelligence was destined to become a greater evolutionary advantage, the next question is obvious. Which dinosaur was already closest to taking that first step? Under the constant motion of plate tectonics, the appearance of the continents would continue to shift. The Himalayas would continue to rise as India collided with Asia. The global climate would keep cycling through periods of warming and cooling. Tropical rainforests would expand and then contract, while grasslands would begin to emerge across many regions of the world. These shifts would create new evolutionary pressures. Giant dinosaurs, which consumed vast amounts of energy, might gradually decline. Meanwhile, smaller, more agile, and better adapted species would gain a distinct advantage. This is a pattern that has occurred many times throughout the history of life. It is not necessarily the strongest species that survives, but the one that adapts the best. And in a world of constant flux, intelligence could become one of the most significant evolutionary assets. This means that groups like the troodontids, dromaeosaurs, or early avian lineages could begin to occupy increasingly dominant ecological roles in the ecosystems of the future. the use of tools has long been considered the greatest breakthrough that propelled humans far ahead of other animal species. However, if a branch of dinosaurs possessing a high level of cognitive ability, like the troodontids, were given millions more years, could they have made a similar leap? Biologically, troodontids possessed a complete hardware foundation: stereoscopic vision, a developed brain, and flexible forelimbs. These were prerequisites for interacting with the environment in more sophisticated ways than just using teeth or claws. In a prolonged evolutionary scenario, the pressure of survival would drive them to use readily available objects, such as branches, to retrieve food, or stones to break through hard shells, a skill optimized over generations. But more important than the use of objects, a true Stone Age only emerged when a species learned to accumulate knowledge. Human history shows that civilization doesn't begin when our ancestors become intelligent, but when knowledge is transmitted. Each generation doesn't need to start from scratch, but inherits experience from the previous generation. If intelligent dinosaur species developed the ability to learn socially in a similar way to how modern intelligent birds pass on techniques to their offspring, they would enter a completely new process of cultural evolution. When tool-using behavior is standardized and passed down over millions of years, the formation of a Stone Age of its own for dinosaurs is no longer far-fetched. While it may be very different from human stone tools, the core principles of tooling learning and the ability to inherit knowledge would be the foundation for a dinosaur species to emerge from the shadows of instinct and become the architects of an early civilization. When we talk about a world where dinosaurs lived for another 10 million years, there's an equally intriguing question. What would happen to mammals? After the mass extinction, things changed. A series of ecological niches were left vacant, and mammals quickly seized the opportunity. In just a few million years, they evolved into large herbivores, apex predators, aquatic animals, and finally, primates. But in our scenario, that won't happen. If dinosaurs continued to exist, most of the crucial ecological positions would still be in their hands. Huge herds of herbivorous dinosaurs would still dominate the plains. Theropod predators would still be at the top of the food chain. This would make it difficult for mammals to scale and diversify as rapidly as they did in actual history. This doesn't mean mammals would disappear. They would still evolve and adapt. But instead of becoming the dominant animal group on the planet, they may continue to play a secondary role for many millions of years to come. Most importantly, primates may never have reached the status necessary to evolve into humans. In actual history, primate success was linked to the disappearance of large dinosaurs and the expansion of forest ecosystems during the Paleogene period. If dinosaurs had remained, ubiquitous competitive pressure and predation could have made that process entirely different. In other words, in a world where dinosaurs did not go extinct, it is highly likely that Homo sapiens would never have appeared. Symbols of human civilization, such as cities, technology, or global information networks, and entire human civilizations, may simply be a future that never came into being. And And if not humans, the next question is whether any other creature is capable of stepping into that position. Could a dinosaur civilization have emerged? The short answer is, they could have progressed very far, but they likely would not have become an industrial society like our own. To build a modern civilization, intelligence alone is not enough. Human success stems from a unique combination of high-level cognition and hands with opposable thumbs, allowing for precise, sophisticated tool manipulation. In contrast, the vast majority of dinosaurs were constrained by their forelimb structure. While descendants of the troodontids might have developed cooperative hunting skills and basic tool use, the manufacturing of complex machinery would have remained a formidable evolutionary barrier. However, we should not underestimate their potential. If a branch of intelligent dinosaurs had continued to evolve for millions of years, they could have established an advanced form of culture rooted in social learning and collective knowledge. They might not have built sprawling metropolises or invented computers, but they could have developed complex social structures far surpassing any non-human animal in history. Perhaps the future of dinosaurs was never about becoming scaled humans. Instead, they might have forged an entirely different evolutionary path, a form of intelligence not defined by machinery, but by deep ecological mastery and complex social cohesion. Tragically, the Chicxulub impact 66 million years ago did more than just end the age of dinosaurs. It permanently erased the potential for a second intelligent world. It remains a magnificent what-if, a vision of an alternative intelligence that humanity will forever only be able to imagine through the fossilized remnants of the past. Subscribe to the channel now to discover more exciting things in the next episode. At depths of approximately 3,300 feet below the surface, sunlight is almost completely absent, and the ocean transforms into a state difficult for humans to imagine. Temperatures hover around 39 degrees Fahrenheit, water pressure can exceed 1,500 pounds per square inch, and energy sources are virtually non-existent or unstable. Unlike shallow waters, where organisms can hunt frequently, here, an organism may have to wait days for access to food. In that environment, life does not thrive in a diverse way, but in an extreme way. Every characteristic must serve a single goal: conserving energy and prolonging life. It was under these conditions that two squid species, Architeuthis dux and Mesonicoteuthis hamiltoni, evolved in a remarkably similar direction. However, upon closer inspection, their resemblance is only superficial. Their survival methods differ significantly. The giant squid can grow to over 30 feet in length, its body slender and elongated like a spearhead, while the giant squid is typically only about 20 to 23 feet long but much heavier, potentially exceeding 1,000 pounds. In other words, one is long and fast, the other is shorter but heavier and stronger. This difference is not accidental, but reflects two approaches to solving the same survival problem. To understand this, we need to go back about 100 million years, when their ancestors belonging to the Oegopsida group were still small, soft, and vulnerable organisms. In the deep sea environment, smaller individuals were at a clear disadvantage. They lost heat faster, consumed energy more quickly, and struggled to survive for long periods without food. Conversely, larger individuals could survive longer between infrequent hunting. Over time, natural selection pushed both evolutionary branches toward increased size, but the specific environment of each branch produced different results. In the vast temperate oceans, where space is open and prey moves quickly, Architeuthis ducks evolved to optimize speed. Its long, flexible body allows it to accelerate rapidly in short bursts, enough to reach prey before it can escape. Its long tentacles have suction cups with small teeth, creating a strong grip when it seizes a target. It can be envisioned as a swift, decisive predator, relying on precise timing to succeed. Conversely, in the cold waters near Antarctica, where temperatures are lower and energy is even scarcer, Mesonicoteuthis hamiltoni cannot sustain that strategy. Here, swimming fast means expending precious energy, so instead of becoming faster, it becomes heavier and stronger. Its thick body, well-developed muscles, and sharp, hook-like tentacles help it grip prey without chasing. If the giant squid is an active predator, the king squid is more like an ambush, waiting and seizing opportunities when prey comes within range. This difference is also evident in their body structure. Giant squid have suction cups with small rings of teeth, suitable for holding prey while moving quickly, while colossal squid have rotating hooks, providing stronger grip but less flexibility. One prioritizes control of movement. The other prioritizes locking down and finishing quickly. These are two completely different strategies, but both lead to the same result, becoming a giant creature. However, size brings both advantages and risks. As these two species grow larger, they also become more attractive targets for capable predators. In this case, it's Physeter macrocephalus, a whale that can grow to over 50 feet in length and dive to depths of thousands of feet to hunt. Sperm whales use echolocation to detect prey in the dark, an advantage that neither squid species can completely avoid. The circular scars on the sperm whale's body, thought to be caused by the giant squid's suction cups, suggest that confrontations between them are not uncommon. Remarkably, both squid species, despite differing strategies, face the same predator and the same pressures for survival. This leads to an evolutionary cycle where larger size helps them survive smaller threats better, but also makes them targets for larger predators. As a result, both evolutionary paths continue to be pushed in more extreme directions. The phenomenon of two unrelated species developing such similar characteristics is called convergent evolution. In this case, the common ground lies not in origin, but in environmental pressure. Both species face the same problem: how to survive in an environment with limited energy, high pressure, and low temperature. And although they start from two different paths, both arrive at a similar solution: increasing body size to optimize survival. In short, Architeuthis dux and Mesonicoteuthis hamiltoni are not alike because they share a close ancestry, but because they faced the same harsh conditions and were forced to adapt in the most efficient ways. One species chose speed, the other chose strength, but both reached the same ultimate result: becoming giant creatures of the deep sea. To understand why these explanations keep repeating, we need to go back in time to an era when the ocean was far more brutal. Around 80 million years ago, during the Cretaceous period, the ocean was the domain of Mosasaurus, a marine reptile that could grow over 50 feet long and was almost perfectly engineered for hunting. Remarkably, Mosasaurus wasn't born this way, but rather the result of a transformation from a land-dwelling lizard. Upon returning to the aquatic environment, their foundations had to change to begin increasing drag and adapting, leading to the development of paddles, tails for propulsion, and elongated bases to reduce drag. More importantly, their jaw structures became more flexible and powerful, allowing them to tackle previously inaccessible large objects. The arrival of Mosasaurus not only added another predator, but also completely changed the way of survival in the ocean. Before the time of Mosasaurus, one of the most successful groups of organisms was the ammonite, mollusks with a hard spiral shell that acted as a natural armor. For tens of millions of years, this strategy was nearly perfect, because most predators could not penetrate that protection. However, when faced with a predator with a powerful bite and direct attack tactics, the hard shell gradually became a weakness rather than an advantage. It limited their mobility and reaction time, making it difficult for the ammonite to adapt to changing environments. This is a prime example of how an evolutionary strategy can become obsolete, not because it was ineffective, but because surrounding conditions changed too rapidly. While the ammonite continued to rely on defense, another branch of organisms chose the complete opposite path, abandoning protection in exchange for flexibility. This is where Tusoteuthis longa came in, an ancient squid that could reach lengths of about 30 to 35 feet. Lacking a shell, Tusoteuthis relied on its soft body and rapid movement to avoid danger, and used its long tentacles to effectively capture prey. This represented a shift from a survival strategy to an evasive one. However, despite its similar appearance, Tusoteuthis was not an ancient version of modern squid species like Architeuthis dux or Mesonicoteuthis hamiltoni. It existed in a completely different environment, where light was still present and predatory pressure was high, while modern squid mainly live in the deep sea, where energy is the deciding factor. Approximately 66 million years ago, a mass extinction event wiped out both ammonite and mosasaurus, depriving the oceans of once dominant species. This disappearance was not just an end, but a reconstruction, creating a new environment with different conditions. Shellfish began expanding into the deeper layers of the ocean, where competition was less intense, but energy demands were harsher. Here, the pressure to survive no longer came from immediate predation, but from the ability to endure for extended periods without food. This allowed the organism to survive more stably in the cold, resource-scarce environment. Therefore, the ocean once again created giant creatures. But this time, not to cope with predators in shallow waters, but to adapt to the harshness of darkness and scarcity. Looking back at this entire journey, it can be seen that evolution is not an infinite creative process, but is limited by the environment and the laws of physics. Furthermore, evolution is often described as an endless process of variation, but in reality, it is tightly bound by the laws of physics. This raises a crucial question. If evolution can produce countless forms, why do we constantly observe similar forms appearing in completely unrelated species? The answer becomes clearer when we consider life in the ocean, where movement, energy, and survival are governed by strict physical limits. A striking example can be found in the comparison between Ichthyosaur and Delphinus delphis. Ichthyosaurs lived over 90 million years ago and could reach lengths of 10 to 30 feet, while modern dolphins typically range from 6 to 8 feet in length and can swim at speeds of up to 35 miles per hour. Despite this difference in time and lineage, both share a nearly identical body plan. A streamlined, torpedo-shaped form, a powerful tail used for propulsion, and fins positioned to maintain stability. This similarity is not accidental. It is the result of a fundamental constraint: drag in water. Water is approximately 800 times denser than air, meaning that any inefficiency in shape dramatically increases resistance. Studies in fluid dynamics show that streamlined bodies can reduce drag by up to 50% compared to irregular shapes, allowing organisms to conserve energy while maintaining speed. For a predator that must chase prey or escape being hunted, this difference is not minor. It is the difference between survival and death. Both ichthyosaurs and dolphins face the same problem: how to move efficiently through a dense medium while minimizing energy loss. A bulky or uneven body would require significantly more energy to maintain speed, making it unsustainable in the long term. Over millions of years, natural selection eliminated inefficient forms, leaving only those that approached an optimal design. As a result, both species converged on the same streamlined structure, not because they were related, but because the environment allowed very few viable alternatives. This principle extends beyond movement into energy management. Marine predators must balance energy intake with expenditure. A high-speed chase, for example, consumes a large amount of energy in a short time. If the body is not optimized, the energy cost of movement may exceed the energy gained from food, leading to eventual failure. By reducing drag and improving propulsion efficiency, both ichthyosaurs and dolphins could maximize their chances of successful hunting while minimizing wasted energy. The convergence between these two species demonstrates a broader rule. Evolution is not an unlimited creative force, but a process shaped by constraints. When different organisms face the same environmental challenges, whether it is water resistance, energy efficiency, or movement stability, they are often pushed toward the same solutions. If this has changed your perspective on evolution, keep following and subscribe to the channel because the next story will delve even deeper into the recurring laws of nature.